Abhas, and I'm going to be moderating and sort of coordinating the panel. And one of the things we want to achieve through our discussion here today is to look at what security challenges we see in our daily lives and worlds, and how free and open source software can help us fight those challenges. And we'll also try to look at so many more aspects of security. Now, today, over extensive discussions with everyone here, I have personally learned a lot about security that I didn't know about. And what I would love to do is channel some of their experience and expertise in security and using free and open source software to handle security challenges with all of you. So the way we will run this discussion today is that we will have everyone sort of introduce themselves and talk about their perspectives on security and how they handle security in their roles in their respective companies. And then we can have some interaction. You can ask questions about security, and then we'll try to pass those questions around to everyone in the panel. Right? So Ajay, we'll start with you. So why don't you talk about it?
Hello everyone, my name is Ajay Shenoy. I work for Dell, India R&D. For the last 11 years, I've been working on firmware development on BMCs. Are you guys familiar with what BMC is? One person. Okay, so BMC, it's a chip on the motherboard which helps you do remote systems management. So I've been involved entirely with BMC firmware development for 11 years. So typically when you think of security, you think of operating system security or you think of application security. You don't really worry about your firmware. Right? You don't worry about BIOS or BMC firmware. The power supply has a firmware, hard disk has a firmware. Every device on your motherboard has a firmware these days. And we don't worry about the security of that. And my introduction to security happened a couple of years ago when an Argentinian researcher got in touch with us where he was able to exploit a vulnerability in the firmware and take control of the server. And he found a whole bunch of issues. And very few of the issues were from open source modules, and most of the issues were from proprietary code that we had developed. So that speaks volumes about the advantages of using open source. We'll probably cover that in the rest of the discussion. So I'll pass it down to Rohith.
Hello all, my name is Rohith Krishnan. I work for Intel India Private Limited. So I have a master's in cybersecurity. Right now I'm into red team in one of the teams in Intel. We call it as CHD Connected Home Division. So we deliver network device. So I do some sort of threat modeling, pen testing, security auditing basically, you can infer. So that's it. I'll probably hand over to Rupesh.
Thank you. So my name is Rupesh Shantamurty. I work with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HPE. So I currently deal with system management software OneView and the security models we model into that, basically around the US federal FIPS, CNSA and other compliance requirements. Prior to this, for 10 years, I was handling operating system security of a proprietary operating system called OpenVMS at HPE. I was also a board member for 4 years of ISC2 Bangalore chapter. ISC Square is an international organization which gives certifications in security. So I am a CISSP myself. I was also a cloud security trainer. I have trained corporates like Reliance Jio 5 years back when nobody knew Jio, World Bank Chennai, and also Accenture. I would take this opportunity to make you aware of ISC2 Bangalore chapter. It's a non-profit organization. Do go to its website. Just type ISC2 number 2 Bangalore chapter, and you can get connected. We hold security events to make people aware and get them certified as well. Thank you.
Hello everybody. So myself is Susanta Roy, and I'm from Accenture. So my background is on I'm doing security research. I'm part of Accenture industry security team. So into this, my most focus area is like web application, mobile application, IoT application, and this penetration testing. So even we work on cloud security perspective. Even we help client to design best solution, architecture, so that it should be. And also we focus on secure software module, like suppose we are developing many application, and in beginning stage we take care of the security aspects, like from the solution and the design. And normally what it does, we work on security on the development phase, or maybe during the testing phase. But we are focusing on some kind of moduling or checklist, so that it can be taken care prior. And top of that, I having a background of cyber law and cyber forensics. And so maybe during discussion we'll come up with the more points. Yeah.
Thank you, Sushanta. So I'll start the discussion with Rupesh. Rupesh, you had earlier mentioned to me that you started your work around security with wireless networks, and you've been working with patching security vulnerabilities in the proprietary operating system, and now you're doing so much more which uses open source software as well. So first of all, can you give everyone an overview of what are the challenges that someone sees in an organization when they are building products or managing networks or operations, and how those security vulnerabilities or problems show up to users or people who are using those systems?
Yeah, so when we talk about products using open source, so we use in our product, which is a proprietary product, a lot of open source components. And so it has to be from the ground up. Okay, so one thing is secure development lifecycle. Okay, so it has to be implemented in terms of process. Okay, so you get into tools like which will do static analysis of the code. Okay. Then when we get into the deployment part of it, we have a team, a penetration testing team, which will use, they also use a lot of open source for doing penetration testing, like Metasploit being one tool, and to exploit and try to hack into our software. And almost on a weekly basis, we get hits from them and say that you have not written something which is not protected and exploitable. So we go ahead and the thing is, once we deploy it, okay, that's when the challenge happens. Okay, you are deploying something proprietary along with open source, and open source is something which is exposed. There are a lot of eyes on it, and that's when people exploit it. Especially, I'll take here the example of OpenSSL. So anything that has to do with S at the end of it, HTTPS or FTPS, is using SSL. Okay, OpenSSL in the background, and OpenSSL is something which is got exploited in the recent past with Poodle and Heartbleed and all. So patching. Okay, so you get the attack is there in the market. Your customers will be on your head. Okay, we want a patch. Okay, but that's where the challenge is. Big enterprises have this little bit challenge in terms of rolling out how do you patch it. Okay, because you want to align it with your patch cycles. Okay, you have multiple versions in the market. How do you patch every version out there? So that's where some tools I would like to bring out, something like OpenSCAP. Okay, how many of you are aware of SCAP? Okay, only one hand. So SCAP stands for Security Content Automation Protocol. There's an open source implementation called OpenSCAP, where you get a dashboard where you can actually see your 1,000 servers, how many of them are vulnerable to which vulnerability, and how can you automate the patching process. So basically, nobody's going to go and patch each and every one of those servers manually. It's an age of automation. So how do you automate all this, and how do you ensure that you are at good health? So OpenSCAP helps in that. I think I'll give it to others for...
Yeah, Rohith, you mentioned you were a part of the Red team at Intel.
Yeah.
What is it that you do? What tools do you use? And what role does free and open source software play in your daily work?
Okay. So we have the network device, as I said. So 90%, or you can say 95% of our device consists of open source. when you deploy something to a customer, you would be needing something which is secure enough. That's why everyone opting open source tools or open source softwares basically, because it's proven and tested and used by millions. Okay, so that's why like everyone, we are also relying on some framework and softwares. So in order to ensure the security and like Rupesh said, that daily patching the vulnerabilities. So we do scanning using black duck binary analysis tools, which is not an open source one, which is a Synopsys tool. So that is one stuff. Second is we have CI/CD, continuous integration deployment in our DevOps environment, where we do source code scanning. We do have some static code analysis tools like Clockwork. Some other teams use Coverty, all such tools. When you go into depth, after having a platform which is good enough, you can do some testing in order to ensure that you don't have any past vulnerabilities. For example, I would like to bring to light the 2017 attack of Equifax. That patch was already there in market in March, and the attack took place in July, which means for 2 months they were not able to patch it. They were not able. I didn't mean they were not able. They didn't patch it, which caused 148 million users to use a compromise data breach. So like that, we face certain issues in past. So what we did as part of security is, like I said, BDBA scanning, regular scanning. Second thing is continuous monitoring of softwares. First and foremost thing you should be knowing is what are the open source components you are using in your software or in your SDK. Second thing, if you have a exact know-how or what are the components, or whether you have to make sure whether it is needed for your SDK. I could see so many bugs came in, even in one of my last release as well. There we were able to find so many software codes or softwares which are not intended for our device, because we are relying on open source framework which comes with these softwares, but these softwares are causing problems to us. So that is the second thing. And third and foremost thing is you have to the scanners or the tools will give you false positive as well. If you scan with Coverty, you will get to know what are the latest vulnerabilities pertaining to your device. But still, that doesn't mean that your device is secure enough. 2 days back, we had one issue with sudo. Everyone is using Linux, right? From past how many years, I don't remember. Everyone using sudo as well. Still, it is having vulnerability. So even if it is an open source component used by millions, that doesn't mean that it is secure enough. So it has to undergo a series of activities or security levels that needs to be mandatorily be in line with all the products in the market. We do such things like Rupesh said. We do have secure development lifecycle (SDLC). So as part of that, we have architectural reviews, source code reviews, all such things. And the testing or red teaming part is the final one. Before going to the customer, we have to make sure that we don't miss anything. That's how we did. I basically used Kali Linux and all the open source tools for testing. Metasploit is the best. Binwalk and a firmware modification kit for firmware reversing and analysis, AdaPro for reverse engineering, all such things commonly used by security community.
Now, both of you mentioned about the secure software development lifecycle, and Susanta, you work with application teams as a part of your role, and you help those teams evolve software development practices which build software to be more secure by default. So can you talk about what your approach to security is during the course of application development?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we go from so normally earlier that structure was, once development is done, so once development is done, so that application will come to security team, they do penetration testing and takes time. So now it's like how, as soon as they are developing, so we start using source code reviews. Okay, so basically we do source code analysis, and then we do dependency checks, like they will use many third party libraries. So those are also, like, nowadays, it's like, vulnerability. Facebook also facing many common issues nowadays, so because of third party integration, and many applications you'll see like the third party libraries are creating an issue for them. So we start doing checking, those source code static analysis we do first. So once that is come, so we'll give the developers, okay, hey, you see, this is your application, vulnerable at this point. So once that is done, and initially we'll start doing a dynamic testing. So in that part, I guess you also agree. So in the dynamic testing, we first do some automated analysis. So as all these security researchers knows, any analytics, dynamic analysis tool doesn't give for everything 100%. So maybe you will see a ratio will be like 10%, correct, and 99% is like false positive, many a cases. So then we focus on something like manual pen testing, where we find many functional issues. Maybe it is already taken care on the development part, like your after reporting your SaaS report, they have already mitigated those issues. But when coming to the functional issue, you will see many functional issues. So we follow WASP testing guide, which is very exhaustive and very fine tuned. And then also we say developer, okay, fine. We even follow ASVS checklist. WASP has ASVS checklist, like is a they have a questionnaires kind of. So it is very exhaustive checklist. But though we follow, even we say developer to you also follow. You should understand, because now we are at the era where not the security team should be like whole responsible. Like developer has to come up, okay, they should understand the security aspects, because I have seen many a time we have to encryption or maybe hashing mechanism, we to explain them, okay, hey, this is what you are sending API key, it's a plain text, it should not be happen. Even we've seen during a static analysis, they are hard coding or testing credentials, which is very vulnerable. Like what happens, you ship the application to the client, all hard coded credential, and later found in third party testing, or somehow it got exploited. It's a very vulnerable, like you are using it for testing purpose, but when you ship it, before that you should clean up. So those level check and all, it should developer should understand. So that point, really, that security perspective is changed nowadays. And telling about secure development, that part we as a Accenture, like in our, we follow one culture, like do have a security checklist. So we give it to security checklist to solution, whoever solutioning architect, everybody should follow this checklist. Whether while you have a requirement, you have this security consideration at the beginning or not. So then that same culture will be followed by the developer, and then it will be security tester, then it will be like final deliverable. So at the final deliverable, you'll have all these parameter check, whether okay, fine, from starting to end, have you followed these 10 things or not. So that's what the approach is coming. So we following this.
Ajay, I'd like to come to you now. So you work on stuff that sort of operates below the operating system, and you talked about baseband management controller and firmware on that even power supplies are firmware. Now, what is your perspective on how these things offer security, or how these things are exploited by people, or how they have a potential for being exploited? And what role does free and open source software play in your attempt to secure the hardware that runs the operating systems in data centers?
Right. So firmwares have opened up a huge attack surface. It was always there, but it is more and more coming into picture these days. I don't know if you've heard of the Supermicro issue, which was posted on a Bloomberg article. In fact, there was one Black Hat conference. There was this presentation. This guy presented this article called The Unbearable Lightness of BMCs. It's a pretty interesting article about BMCs. He's talking about the HPE solution, the Dell solution, the Supermicro solutions, and he's identified different kinds of issues that are present or were present in BMCs that you can exploit to get access to the server. Now, how many of you, if you have laptops and desktops, how many of you have ever done firmware updates on your system? That's quite a few. I'm quite impressed because firmware updates, even in the data center, I've seen a lot of customers, they don't really do firmware updates and they leave these holes open for anybody to like go and hack into the system. In fact, I've seen BMCs being put on the internet with their default username, password, credentials, and you can access those servers and you can do what you can take full control of them. So to answer the first part of your question, there is a big scope for improving security on the firmware side, and because firmwares are typically not something that you address, but things are changing a lot. There's a lot more focus, especially from Dell perspective. We put a lot more focus on improving the security for firmware as well. Now, coming to the open source part of it, we use a lot of open source code in our firmware. So it becomes easy for us to convince a customer. Like, for example, a customer wants to buy our BMC solution and he wants to know, how can I audit this? How do I know that this particular firmware is good? And the moment we give them a list of open source modules we're using and we tell them we use this latest OpenSSL code and we have all these patches applied, we use these are the libraries that we use, these are the licenses that it uses, automatically their confidence level is much more because they know it's not proprietary code. When it's open source, it means that there are a lot many more eyeballs that have reviewed this code. The security of that code has hardened over a period of time, as opposed to proprietary code, which may or may not have gone through that level of scrutiny and cleanup, right? Like, I have engineers in my team who do a brilliant job of coding, they write great code, they test it for functionality very well. But the moment I ask them, have you coded it for security? Have you tested it for security? They're like, I don't know what you're saying. So so developers in the team typically know how to do their stuff, but when it comes to security, not so much. So, but when we take modules from the open source, it has gone through a whole bunch of security, like static analysis. People have tested it, like penetration tested it. They've applied security patches. There is a team of individuals who are actually handling security issues. There is a process for actually disclosing security issues, allocating a CV for that. So the support that we get from open source team has been fabulous, which helps us churn our code pretty easily and focus on our work instead of going and fixing, let's say, an OpenSSL defect, right? Because there's a team that's supporting it.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm hearing from all of you is that the fact that some of the system, almost all of the system that you use are powered by free and open source software, it gives all of you and your companies a great deal of confidence in the security of those systems, and hence to the customers as well. And some of you have talked about checklists that you have, that you provide developers with, and then you encourage them to follow those checklists while developing software or architecting systems. So now let's look at something else. Finally, so this is about consuming free and open source software. Okay, I would like to touch upon 2-3 different topics, and then you can, one of you can start volunteering to answer that. First is, do you publish some of these checklists so that free software communities can follow these checklists by default, which means that everyone, all of us, also get more secure software because people who are developing software which might get exploited have access to better practices that they can use. Okay, that's one aspect. The second aspect is, how do we increase awareness about these, about better security-focused software development, and how do we enable even very young developers to have that as a part of their priorities when they're starting out their careers with software development. Some of us might be working with communities or working on free and open source software projects completely, and there might not be too much focus on security specifically. It might happen because of other choices that people make, but not because they decided that they would have some discussion around it. So I would like to learn about that aspect as well. So maybe one of you would want to talk about publishing the checklists, or what sort of initiatives you have for that.
So in this aspect, I can say, so organization-wise, we are doing it, but there are many security communities. Like OWASP, if I take an example, OWASP has one project called Security Knowledge Exchange. So this is actually, if somebody, I prefer for developers to follow mandatorily because this particular project goes to deep level. They give the example of source code, what code they should not write actually in the there is some functions in the code we write, right? Some printf function, and there are some functions which expose some internal error. So how to handle those? So this WASP knowledge exchange, it can be a great example. And I was talking about ASBS, that vulnerability standards, some checklist. So this particular ASBS checklist also, it talks about same. So if you see moreover, any organization, like whatever we follow, it is moreover derived from this particular checklist. This has very exhaustive and nicely defined all the parameters, authentication. You have maybe you have some HTTPS transaction, transport layer, that kind of security. So how you'll manage that? So all this is defined nicely.
So in addition to OWASP checklist that he mentioned, I would like to bring out something called as CIS. How many of you are aware of CIS? Okay, so this CIS has benchmarks. Okay, so developers like us contributed. It's a community effort. Okay, so these list the best practices. Okay, in terms of security that you need to follow. Okay, and there are CIS benchmarks for how do you use Kubernetes properly, how do you use Java development, or how do you use any tool for that matter. They have a certain process specified in that. So if you follow CIS benchmarks, that is one thing. And coming to your point about contribution, okay, so since we use open source, okay, it is our responsibility to contribute back to the community as well. So for example, when we were doing from HP cloud development, we 2 years back, okay, we were one of the top contributors in the world for the code for OpenStack. Okay, so OpenStack had HP engineers, but right now it was a strategic shift that we came out of it. And I would also like to bring out that when OpenSSL bugs are fixed internally, we have to publish it out. So it is as per the license that we are using it. So we do contribute in terms of early fixes into the community. And I think with more and more usage, I think that contribution happens. Another contribution that we do, which might not be many people in the open source are not aware of, is that every corporate, okay, that uses open source needs to qualify that open source for their hardware. Okay, so every corporate, like even Dell might be doing it, definitely, I'm sure. HP contributes hardware to the open source community, where the community members will qualify that patch or every patch level against that hardware. We also contribute engineers towards doing that on a dedicated basis.
So, yeah. Intel as a team, we were consumers of OpenWRT framework. As a company, we are contributing to open source in terms of that platform, that framework. After that, we are the major contributors of Purple WRT, which the work is in progress still now. So that is contribution wise. So when, like you said, that checklist, there is only one mantra for the developers: never ever trust inputs. That's what we say to our developers. Never ever trust inputs. You have to do testing on that. You have to make sure that the inputs are valid enough. You have to make sure that you are receiving that particular input which you intended. That's not the way. You have to make sure you are getting inputs, some garbage values, some garbage stuff. That has to do nothing with the code. Still, your code should be able to handle it properly. That's never trust the inputs. That's what we. That's input validation, basically.
One of the things that I would like to add is, let's say that you're doing your own project. You've decided to use an open source code, and you want to know the security implications of that. The first thing that we guys do typically is, let's say I'm sending some data from here to him, and using some open source module, let's call it XYZ. Before we actually start using it, we do something called a threat model. We use a tool called Microsoft Stride Analysis Tool. Stands for spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. So the tool basically helps you model the various threats you could possibly have, and what is the mitigation strategy you are going to adopt. So there is no perfectly secure system. You will never have 100% security. There will be a lot of trade-offs. But once you do this threat modeling, you can always decide on, okay, if I'm using this particular open source module, these are my threats, these are the mitigations, and these are the problems that I'm willing to live with. So that's the first thing that we need to look at. Second thing is take the open source from a well-known source, check your MD5 hashes and all of that, and configure it correctly. A lot of times we see open source being used. Let's say you have downloaded Apache, is using it, but you've not configured it for security, right? You've not enabled some particular security header which is supposed to be used. You're ending up with a lot more trouble than you really need. So configure it for security is one of the main things. Second thing is strip out the things that you don't need, right? Especially with things like Apache, it comes with a whole bunch of modules for doing a whole bunch of things, which you may not need in your project. So if you keep it in your project, what happens is you're just making yourself vulnerable to a lot more attacks. So remove the things that you don't need. I think that will keep the surface of your attacks really narrow, and that helps you leverage open source in a much better way.
So before we open, the panel for questions from the audience, I'd like to ask Susanta a question. You're a self-taught person. You learned security on your own in a way. So how about ending our discussion with a few tips on how to get started being a security specialist, and what sort of resources, what one or two resources that you might want to highlight, which has a roadmap on how to get started?
Coming to the roadmap to getting into security. So my journey I'll just tell you just a little bit about my journey. I was in infra, then I was into auditing, then application security. So I've been to many curves of this backend, and then come to this stream. So if I suggest somebody, I say a developer to coming to this stage, it's very not so challenging nowadays. There is many communities and all. I suggest in Null Bangalore. So it's a very well-known and open source community where people can go learn things, and it's a very good for Uber freshly learning securities basically. So if you want to learn security, go there, take any topic, start giving demo. People are there to correct you. That's what journey I also started. So my past is like that. So I started following them, their culture. So the thing is, there are many senior people is there. So what culture they follow? I suppose today I need some help. I just posted them. They will help me. And then juniors is coming. I again help them back. So that's what the any open source community the main root basically. I feel like this is a backbone. So today and the security community, I feel we don't have that thing. I'll not tell you. It's not like that. It's my secret. I'll not keep it in my pocket. How other closed source does this, right? So it's like I learned something new. Let me post it, and then let other people know. And then somebody is doing something. Let me follow him and learn, and I can teach back to somebody. So that's what the main. You have to learn this culture. So once you build this culture, learning security is also not a big deal. And coming to the point, for developers, because they know the code better. Then as a being I'm into security, I feel like I came to a different background. So but still this stage, I feel like a developer knows the code better, like how this code it's written, and how this flow is. Okay, so now so you have to understand, so what kind of library and all, you have to follow these open communities. So they will publish, so you have to read more, understand, so which is vulnerable. So what you should, it's like he was referring, if you are using open source, you should know what to use. Okay, and how to configure. Many of us, we don't know. Today, if I say I use Kali Linux, okay. If I take Kali Linux, in my organization, the moment I install, the SOC team will trigger a mail to me. Hey, you are vulnerable. It's like that. So now I know how to mitigate that. Then I have a VMware configuration. I'll split this, a network configuration, private network. So it will not come into the picture. So that's what you should know. You should not expose, your things to outside. So that is one. And then learning thing, I suggest you can start with WASP top 10. So they will talk about the top 10 vulnerabilities in. You can go for web, mobile, API, okay, cloud, IoTs. They have a huge expansion. So you follow that. Start with that learning. Maybe slowly, if once you build a culture, start following these communities. Go to Null. Null has many chapters, Null has Bangalore chapter, many other cities they also following. So it doesn't matter which city you are in, just see nearby, location and start following them. And there, then again, I'll tell, for beginners, there is a one more, motivating factor. You can earn money. This society also gives you money, like, bug bounties. Okay, so if you learn your own, so it is very interesting, maybe, it attracts you. So suppose, like, without benefit we don't do any work. This is a fact, right? If I do something and don't get benefit, whatever it is, I'll not be motivated. So if you're motivated money, I said, and you want to learn security, start following this, pages, how they bug bounty. But there is a one, star mark, don't go ahead at any side, do attack. Okay, after this, today's conversation, then you will be behind the bar. So,